of all, can you see the PowerPoint slides that I've got up? Yes.
We can 3D scanning for dummies.
All right, good, perfect. I haven't screwed it up yet. I can't be the only one that was hoping that the tiny robot did a wheelie and drove off the roof. I know there was at least a handful of you that were hoping to see it right off the side. So this is funny because I was actually asked to speak about this Dimensions this year, and this was put together from the perspective that I'm the dummy. I'm the idiot. I've been surveying for 22 years, and the past 5 years, the improvements in the gear that we have, the technology in both the office and outside in the field has just grown by leaps and bounds. And I didn't have anybody to teach me anything to do with scanning. I worked for Diamondback land surveying here in Las Vegas. A lot of you guys know Trent. Trent had an old, it wasn't a Cyrax, but it was an old paperweight essentially. We did 2 scan jobs in 10 years. It was one of those things where we're never going to get into this. And then Mike down in Vegas, he basically beat us into buying a scanner, an SX10, and we haven't looked back ever since. So it's really changed the way that we do a lot of our work. I look at the SX series as like a belt and suspenders. We do a lot of travel work, and I'll get into a bunch of that. But this is the genesis of all of that, was the idea that I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm doing. I have to go figure it out on my own and then teach the guys that work under me. So without further ado, here we go. So here's just obviously a quick table of contents, 4 main sections about what I'm going to address. The best tool for the job, what and when, and it's not always going to be a laser scanner. Speed and accuracy, which Pete did a fantastic job, by the way, talking about the X9. If you guys are on the fence about it, go back and watch this presentation. It was spot on. It was really good, Pete. Hats off to you, sir. You did a fantastic job. Making sense of the data, that's all about the processing, and in the argument, obviously, the benefits of scanning over traditional data collection methods. So to scan or not to scan, everybody buys a scanner, and the first thing they want to do is scan every single job. We just recently picked up our X9, and we now have, I think, 5 or 6 SX platforms. I think we actually have 5 SX12s, and suddenly everybody scans everything to the point where they're scanning parking lots. Not the best idea, case used for scanners, to solely scan things. So you really have to be selective about what you choose to scan and what you choose to stick with your current capabilities. And the note right here, the 100% buy-in from both the field and the office, you are going to run into a bottleneck. If you have 5 crews collecting scan data and you only have 1 or 2 guys in the office capable of processing scan data, that's going to be a big time bottleneck for your productivity. So keep in mind that when you do begin to implement scanning into your workflow, use it where you need it, or use it as kind of a catch-all, just in case. But when it comes to solely using scan data for processing, personally, I tend to reserve that for more complex stuff. Buildings that are a lot of pop-outs or overhangs or just really goofy stuff. Stuff that you'd have to do setups. We recently just did a trailer park, and we're doing a boundary and topo, and they need grades between every single trailer, and there's about 80 trailers on the site. How long is it going to take to traverse and set points and turn angles into every single one of these? We had a crew go out and scan it in one day, picked up everything we needed. I think it ended up being about 60 scans, and it took them about 4 hours, 5 hours. So you can really move pretty fast. But again, the bottleneck. Now it's up to me or one other guy to come in here and crunch all the numbers, crunch all the data, register it, put it in the CAD. So for a perfect example, the 2 jobs here are a couple of our jobs. These are actual jobs, photos from job sites. We use the drone on both of these. One of the guys called and said, "Can I scan this?" I said, "Why? Why would you scan this?" Right? These are 2 good examples of what not to do with a scanner. This is the sort of thing where you've got a bunch of tools in the toolbox. I know everyone's excited to use a scanner, but absolutely not. If one of the guys told me he scanned, the dirt on the top image, I'd send him back out if I didn't kill him. Obviously, that's a drone flight on the one. The other one, you're probably going to run around with a total station or GPS. Obviously not a good use case for a scanner. Then you get into something like this. This is actually the bridge over the Venetian. This is a screenshot of Trimble perspective, which I'll get into just a little bit. But this was done in about 40 minutes. And I ended up doing the entire concourse up there, the bridge that goes over the gondola ride and everything. I scan the entire front of the Venetian in about an hour and 15 minutes, and full-blown 3D model. It's pretty wild how fast you can move and how easy it is. I think it's one thing that Trimble really nailed is if you are a new user to scanning, if this is foreign to you, perspective, super easy, very user-friendly. I've got my X9 right behind me here. I mean, when they talk about this thing has auto leveling, okay, so it's not level. You shut it down, green lights, you're good to go. It's ready right now. So when you talk about, you know, workflows and trying to be efficient and fast, there's nothing faster. It is ridiculously easy to use, very, very easy to set up. And jobs like this with a lot of architectural details, that would take a lot of direct reads, a lot of shots, trying to figure out how to, you know, correctly display the conditions on the ground and then import to TBC and then extract, you know, kick out a CSV and expect someone to be able to draft that. Scanning tells an entirely different story. And coming from a traditional survey background, your first instinct is to, you know, create points out of this, or, you know, how does this translate in 2D? But once you get processing these sorts of files regularly, you tend to think about things a lot differently because, you know, TBC's got quite a few tools. You can create lines. I know a lot of our clients still want points, but there's stuff like this where I would almost prefer the guys go out with a scanner, put down controls, scan the whole thing, and that's the job. You know, that way we could survey from inside the office. I don't know about you guys, but in the middle of June, I'd rather be surveying from inside the office if at all possible here in Vegas. So, but again, you know, you collect a lot more data. We do a lot of travel work. The worst thing that ever happens is a crew goes to Seattle for a week, misses some stuff, doesn't scan it with an SX12. We got to fly back up. Now we've got part of our workflow is every single setup. They run a 360 band scanner, a full dome. They're collecting stuff outside of our survey limits. So when the engineer calls and says, I know I only told you to go to this point, but there's a fire. Yep, we got that. That's in our scan. I can get that for you. So just some of the benefits of adding it to it. So here we go. So complex topos. I don't know how many of you guys do plants, power plants, utility plants. They are the worst thing on the planet to survey. The scanners make quick work of them. Again, reducing the number of setups. The scan, I usually run the fast mode, so you're doing 1 million points a second. Each scan with photos takes me 2 minutes and 37 seconds. And I could just keep going. I've done 100 scans. I've done 94 scans in one long day. I don't know about you guys, but I can't set up the total station nearly that fast and collect that kind of data. Limited access timeframes. You know, if you've got only 2 hours in on a job site, scanning is the way to go. Because if you have to set control, traverse through everything, and you have to still shoot everything, you're better off just setting ground control, grabbing a scanner, and get in, get out. Same thing for hazardous sites, power plants, you know, areas where you're not allowed to be in or be in for a very long period of time. Scanning is the perfect use case for it. And then everybody talks about the cost of the scanning. So you have to think it in terms of cost and time, right? Time is money. And everybody here knows that. And I don't think it's something that you can truly quantify until you've done it, until you've seen it in action, until you've had a job where you've got to be on the ground and then back home on a plane and get 6 acres of topo done in 1 or 1.5 days. So when you look at that, the investment up front of $65,000, $70,000, whatever it ends up being for the scanner that you choose, you're going to save years over in time. I think one of the old formulas used to be for every hour in the office, it was going to be an hour in the field, hour in the office. So now I think it's definitely getting to the point where you can cut an 8-hour field job down to about 4 hours, and you're not making the 4-hour office part of that 8 hours now. Now you're making it maybe 5 or 6. You're still cutting off time on the back end. So what you're really saving in efficiency is money on both sides of it now. So there's a lot of talk about accuracy. You can only pick 2 things: fast, accurate, or cheap. Pick 2. Our experience with this has been awesome. I've demoed some sites where I've had scan data, I've had GNSS data, and I've had hard shots, brought in the TBC, compared all the data. I mean, this is thousands, and all the registration tells you you're within 4,000s. So okay, well that's just an imaginary number until you really put it to practice and say, how does it check to the hard stops with the control? These point clouds that the X9 spits out are absolutely crazy. They are accurate, they're dense, which is really good for scanning purposes. And I mean, we've had ours for 5-6 months now. And the only issues we've ever had were human error. Where you register something, you misregister something, you catch it in TBC, you find there's a shot that's a little bit off. Immediately, my first instinct is, okay, what did I screw up? Not what did the scanner screw up. Obviously, here are the 4 different scanners in the Trimble. And yes, that is the last blockbuster on the planet in Bend, Oregon. I scanned it for fun. Don't ask. I'm a nerd. There's the X7, the X9, and the X12. Again, not every one of these is good at every application. And I'll go through that in a minute, but just a quick rundown. The SX12 is the slowest, but it is truly a Swiss Army knife instrument. The X7, great scanner, X9, an improved X7. The X12 is a very different beast. It's not as fast when it comes to setting it up. It's a little more cumbersome, but it has a significant improvement in range over the 7 and the 9, and the point density is, if you look at a point cloud from an X12 compared to a 7 or a 9, and say that you're doing bridges or steel as-builts for bolts, anchor bolts, beams on bridges, overpasses, that kind of thing, the X12 is absolutely the perfect application for anything where you need that sort of accuracy and that sort of, what's the word? When you need to be really, really on and have a really good 3D model of every single bolt on a job, the X12 is really the way to go. So here's the SX series. They're a 1-second total station. I love these things. It would be my desert island instrument. Give me one thing for the rest of my life. This is what I'm taking all day long. The range is fantastic on these. And this is where, if you have a combination of an SX and you're running X7 or X9, that truly, to me, that's what I run. That's the perfect combination, because if you need range, you have it with the SX. You can window and go long range and then use your X7 or X9 to infill all your data inside that you really need to be tight on. And a lot of you guys are obviously familiar with this. This is probably one of the most popular instruments I see out there now. There's a lot of companies switching to it, and this is the gateway drug. This is it right here. This is where we got started and kind of looked at scanning as maybe something we'd look at getting into, and that was in 2018, and we've never looked back. And now we've added 4 more scanners. It's taken off on a mind of its own. Again, here's the 7 and the 9. Pete did a great job at this. At this point, he's probably already brought up all of this. Yeah, it's a fantastic instrument. You could pack it in the backpack, carry it on a plane, tripod, backpack, fly. It's super portable. It's lightweight. The battery life on it is fantastic. I generally go through 1 battery a day, maybe 1.5, and you're talking 60, 70 scans plus. The battery life on the tablet, we have a T10, and it's fantastic. We have an extra. I've only needed to use it once or twice. Then here's the X12, and again, if heavy duty scanning is going to be your thing and you need stuff that at range and high density and fast, this will do a 23-second scan. When we demoed it, when I stole mics from Monson down in Vegas for way longer than I was supposed to, I set it up in here, and it did, in 26 seconds, it had photos done and fully scanned my office. It was absolutely unreal. And then actually playing with those point clouds, you could pick up the design of my mouse pad. It was pretty wild. I think the thing that turns people away from that is it's more expensive, obviously. But if you guys are primarily really going to lean heavy into scans, I would love to have an X12, to be honest. If Trent said, hey, I got you an X12 for Christmas, I wouldn't say no. So there's that. And here's just the breakdown. And I know Peter already showed this. In red, there's a couple things that I just have found in personal use to be really the highlights of each one. Obviously, the range on the SX, being able to scan, it's a little slower. But if you don't want to invest in an X12, the SX series stuff will get you there. The scan speed of the Trimble X12, obviously, it's far and away the fastest thing that Trimble makes, and it really is fantastic. The 3D point accuracy from both the 9 and the 12 are great. You look at that number, 3 millimeters. What is 3 millimeters? If we're at the point where we're arguing over 3 millimeters, I think we've kind of lost the purpose of most of our work. And then the scan time. I have a 9. That 1 to 6 minutes. Most of my stuff is in the lowest resolution, fastest speed. Take photos. I'm under 3 minutes per scan. I can bump it if I needed to, and it's not bad at all. The SX12, that's part of the reason why we ended up with an X9. Really, if any of you guys want to get an upgrade, send your boss into the field and make him survey full dome scans with an SX instrument. They will want something faster, and you'll end up with an X9. So this is just to touch on, I know a lot of the old point cloud stuff we used to send overseas. We would register, we'd have a company overseas register and send it back and a finished product. We wouldn't touch it. We just scanned it and send it. Now it's so incredibly easy. We have younger kids that I'm teaching how to register between the point clouds. It is literally just click, click, click. It's super simple, and I'm actually going to show a little bit of that if I have time, which I should. The Pairwise, the auto registration and refinement, it's fantastic. Trimble has a host of auto extraction point cloud features for lines and points. That is something that is always getting better. To be honest, it was terrible, 6-8 months ago. They came out with an update to TBC, and it's gotten a lot better. And it's only getting better. And now they've added AI to it, so it can actually do machine learning. And that's going to be something that going forward, there's only going to be more scans being done in this industry. The scanning is not going anywhere. So really, it's hop on the train or get out of the way, because Trimble's investing into it. They're upgrading it with AI. This is something they're really pushing, and it's best to get on now instead of playing catch up years down the road, especially when clients are the ones asking for it. So yeah, these are the common complaints that you hear about it. The length of time to process the data, it's not intuitive, and the accuracy. And again, with the accuracy, you can make your checks for yourselves. I encourage everybody, check your scans with hard shots until you feel comfortable with it. The interface Perspective is the easiest software I've ever used, survey-wise. It is fantastic. It is easy. A dummy like myself can definitely pick it up in one day and learn it pretty well. And then TBC, I know a lot of you guys are probably super familiar with TBC. It is, when you have the full-blown computer to run it on, it's even better than Perspective. And then the processing the data, I wouldn't say you would need a special machine. We have a secondary machine that I process everything on. But you don't need it. It's not something you need. If you're running 10 different things at once, because I'll be processing drone data, processing scan data, registering scans, and drafting something in AutoCAD all at the same time, not a great idea on one machine. But if this is something you could sit down, plug in one task, and just register scans and crank data out of it, it'll run on pretty much anything that runs TBC, because the load on TBC with the scans, once they're loaded in, isn't bad. Getting them in there, it will definitely depend on your computer, but once it's in there, it moves pretty good. So this is just a screenshot. I run everything with color-coded intensity, just easier to see things. And this is like a photo of a screen of Trimble Perspective. It's all touch. You can literally, when you register stuff, you pick one scan, slide it over the other, hit register. Trimble's algorithm works, aligns all the lines, and you get in there, you can check it. It's super easy. The learning curve is, it's really, like I said, I had a guy never play with a scanner in his life, scanning in 4 hours, and really did a great job, knocked it out. TBC, all of our favorite here, the do-it-all. When it comes to scanning, their point cloud classification is really next level now. It has gotten significantly better over the last 2 releases, and it's only going to get better. Again, you're probably all very familiar with this, and seeing it in 3D and scans here in a couple minutes is going to be, I think some of you guys will probably feel a little bit better about tackling it, because I know people are very leery about registering scans if they've never done it before. Here's some of the tools that you can see, like the back of sidewalk there. You got some curb here. TBC will auto extract curb and gutter. So on a real good, clean, dense scan, it works great. It's still a little buggy around curves. It can be frustrating to wrestle with, but the way they're going with it, it's going to get refined. It's going to get better. We kind of know how that works with Trimble. They're going to figure it out. And then you can create points. You can literally click on points in the point cloud. If you miss something, top of fire hydrant, just click OK, X, Y, and Z right on the coordinate there for the top of fire hydrant. If you guys, do work with drones and create orthos that are georeferenced, you could drop the image into TBC on top of scan data. You could take the line work from your ortho and drape it over the surface so it assigns the Z value to all of your 2D line work. That's something I've only tried once or twice, but it's pretty wild. It's fast. And again, you can make a surface out of the scan data. The AI stuff that's coming is going to be really good at extracting a lot of this data on its own. And you can also teach it with the machine learning that just came out. You can actually teach it to recognize certain kinds of trees or certain sorts of, you can make a group called fire hydrants, and it'll learn what the fire hydrants look like. And then every single job you do after that, it'll filter out fire hydrants. And that's just one example of what it's going to be able to do. Okay, so, hydrants for scanning. The advantages over traditional surveying, it's super high accuracy. The repeatability is up here. And also anybody can do it. You don't need to send your quote unquote all-star best guy out to every single job to get a great result. You just need to teach the guys the correct procedures to scan it well enough and let the instrument take care of it. Hazardous environments. I don't like playing on the road any more than you guys do. You could set the SX up at the intersection. You could scan the intersection instead of walking out there. I think that's something that's not mentioned often enough, is the idea that this will keep you safe. This will keep you from going into areas where you probably don't want to be going. The limited source of error, provided your setups are good and you're doing your normal checks that you would do in any setup, you can't blow a rod height. You're not going to miss things. As long as you can see them, the scanner is going to pick it up. So the amount of missed data or incorrect data goes way down. And again, field time, you're cutting a lot of these jobs in half, if not even better than that, with the amount of data you're catching and the time it's taking. You have guys doing multiple jobs a day. You can do 2 or 3 small topos in one day with the scanner, and then the added office time still won't equal what normally would take to do between the two. So now I've got a little TBC here. So this is using the Pairwise registration, and this here is scans that were done with our SX12. So I just took one here on the right hand side and one here on the left. And as you can see, it's okay. It's not super dense. Over here is something done with the X9. And just to give you guys an idea how easy the registration is, the bottom is the registration results. Okay, so the red is the base that I've built with the SX12 scans, and the green is what I'm going to try to register to those. So this button over here on the right under the Pairwise registration, we're going to hold the reference stations up here as the SX12. They're run through a traverse, they're coordinately correct. The moving stations, I've only got a couple in here. I actually ended up doing the whole thing, hour and 10 minutes, 27 scans. So there's a button right there, automatically register pair. It's pretty good. It doesn't get it 100% of the time, but there's a fix for that, and I'll go through that. Yeah, I should have time. So down at the bottom, computing registration, and this should not take very long. Of course, now that I say that, there we go. Okay, so the residual error of 9 thousandths. And now, one thing you have to be careful with, because geometry that repeats itself does get it confused a little bit with the auto registration. So if you're doing, for example, we did an underground parking garage in downtown Los Angeles and had about 2,000 2x2 columns. They all look the same. There was no differentiation between any of them. And on more than one occasion, I had to fix the registration because the only way I would catch it is I would leave a door open. You have a bunch of columns, you have one part of the wall, and along that wall there would be a door. Leave the door open. If you have cones, if you have objects in your scan, don't take them out, don't move them. Sometimes I'll actually put a cone down in my scan if I can tell that it's going to be a difficult pair of scans to register. Because the way that it looks for registration is it's plane based. So it looks for common planes. And the biggest one is having that third plane like that backstop. So say you have a wall, and a floor. The further you get from that back wall, the harder time it's going to have to figure out where along the wall you are, because everything over here looks the same. So something like a cone or a shopping cart or somebody sleeping on a bench, if you can pick it out in one scan, you can pick it out in another, and that will actually save you if your registration will not go. So something like this, I'll come in here and I'll double check it real quick. And what you're looking for is, a lot of times I'll come in the top down view, and you want to make sure that the angles look good. You want to make sure the building lines seem to match up. And as you build it more and more, you can kind of see, how close it is. So I'll usually come through and I'll give it a look, and you hit add to reference, and that's it. That's one registered scan right there. It adds it to the reference station image up here. So on the left-hand side, you're actually going to start to build that on the left with the scans from the right, and then on the bottom, it's going to update your point cloud. And then as you continue to work your way around, sometimes you'll run into a problem registration where just two scans will not register on their own. They will tell you that they're only, 2 buildings, and the numbers are great, and you look at it and you're like, there's no way, they don't work. So this one here, this one's worked great, 6,000s with really good overlap. We're going to add that, and then I'll do a manual one just so you guys can see what it looks like. So what I'm going to do is, and as far as how accurate you need to be on this, you just need to be close. If you're close, it'll understand what you're trying to pick. So I'll go in here on the left-hand side. I'll pick this corner of the window here. I'll pick the corner of the window right here. Down over here to the right, it says auto align. And now what it's going to do, it's going to say, hey, these are 2 common points. It's almost like a GNSS calibration. And there you go. And that's all there is to it. It's literally as simple as that. And you just do that for as many times as you need to. 70 to 100 takes a little while. This is our office. This is actually our office. So we have a really good testing spot to do a lot of this. I can go out there and play with the scanners and the drones and whatever I need. The final one that I did, this is a scaled down version. Yeah, see, and they kind of come in the middle of nowhere. This is a scaled down version with only a handful of scans, but full registration and refinement took me 28 minutes the other day, and that's one entire building. Hour and 15 minutes of scan time in the field, half hour in the office. And again, okay, so let's just say somebody brand new, it takes them an hour to register that much data in the office. That's next to nothing compared to what it would take total to survey it, manually. So that's where you're really picking up the speed, is with all these new tools that Trimble's coming out with to make all this easier. And then of course, if you were to, I guess real quick here, I'll show this, and then I'll see if anybody's got any questions. But this is primarily what we use most of our scan data for, is when you come into here and the crews come out here, they scan the building, just call it point 1, just call it B face, northern easting elevation. Go in here, and you can create survey points. Just click it. Click it. So when I joke about surveying from the office, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So now you can see how point density matters, because the more dense the points, the easier it is to see. You can literally click points. I don't know how many of you guys are running the line codes, the FXL files in TBC, but it'll work with this. You could run your FXL codes as you go through here. Just create your points. They're going to be like grid points essentially, and then process your source and run all your line work. So if you do a good enough job scanning, then you can absolutely come through here and create deliverables just by clicking points in the point cloud from the office. So if you guys have any questions, or if I missed anything, or if there's something that you think of later, definitely reach out. I'm half in the office, half in the field, so you'll catch me outside scanning or inside processing. I try to be as available as I can for this kind of stuff because, again, I had no one to teach me. So it was one of those things where you kind of sink or swim, figure it out. And hopefully it's a little bit easier for other people if they have someone to ask. So if you guys have any questions, just feel free to reach out and let me know. That's it. Troy, that's all I got.
Thanks, Rob. That was awesome. You got us right back online too in our schedule. And I really appreciate being able to see that real data from real survey applications, and also your story about how you had to figure it out on your own. I think a lot of people call it a story. So, do we have any questions for Rob at all? Thanks for putting your contact information out there, Rob. That's going the extra mile. Appreciate that. Currently no questions, so we just want to say thank you and really appreciate you taking your time to be with us today.
Thanks for having me.